Hello and welcome, my metal leaves. Today we're gonna react to Medabots, the series Lost to the West by Manga Kamen. The link to the video will be in the description below, so leave him a like and a comment and watch this video. He deserves the clicks. So, yeah, with that, let's start right into it.
Move, you stupid piece of junk!
Yeah, move! Go on, Medabots.
Hi, hello.
Oh yeah, my history with Medabots was basically that they aired it over here and I watched it and really enjoyed it. I really liked it. I played some of the games and yeah, I should play more, honestly. And I wish it would be bigger in the West, quite honestly. Well, let's continue.
Oh, Manga Kamen here. I've always been a fan of collecting things, whether it be trading cards or cute little monsters that you can battle in video games. Collecting things is pretty much a staple of my life that I don't think will ever go away. And back in the days of the late 90s and early 2000s, collectibles were all the rage. Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Bionicle, Magic the Gathering, figurines. It was a magical time to be a kid.
Yeah, I love collecting as well. It was a cool time back then. It's not that this time is dead, like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, all these things still exist. Well, Bionicle's not as much, I think. But, yeah, I think the magical part about it was mostly that it was our childhood. Not really that it is anything special from that time. We were just younger and were, well, magicaled by things easier because we didn't know many things. We didn't have to do adulting like washing dishes and still collecting stuff though. Digimon cards, for example.
Kid and young teenager. Of course, there was always that one series that I was sad to never see take off in the West. And for the longest times, I thought it was gone for good. Lost to the sands of...
I like the editing he does with the background having that video running. That's kind of cool.
time. What series was that?
Medabots!
Medabots!
I can only imagine the number of people whose brains just lit up with that song playing the first few notes. It's something that a lot of shows back in the old days used to have with their theme songs.
Honestly, that opening could go head to head with a Pokemon opening. Yeah, definitely.
Bots, or Medabots as it's known in Japan, is a series created by Rin Homura back in...
Oh yeah, Medabots being Medarots in Japan. I think they changed that name because, well, rot not being that nice of a word, and also it's a bit weird. Like, the meta part comes from metal, that much is obvious, and the rot part is basically short for robot, but like, bot fits it much more. And yeah, I honestly like the Western name more. Medabots sounds better than Medarots.
1997. We're talking stuff like video games, manga, and even actual anime that got 3 seasons back in the day. We just don't talk about season 3. The basic concept is similar to that of other RPGs, most notably Pokemon, only instead of having cute little creatures that you go around the wild to catch and battle other creatures, you got a kick-ass robot that battles it out, and the winner can take a part from the other Medabot to add to their collection.
It's your bot goodbye!
Then,
by the way, if you like Medabots, you should definitely check out Level 5's Little Battlers Experience, or also known as Dumbbell Senki. The anime is great, the games are great, and it's all about robots that you can customize by putting together parts, just like this, basically. It's really cool, and it's in the background there, you can see some there.
that just sounds wicked. It reminds me of the Battle City arc from Yu-Gi-Oh! Where you could take the rarest card from your opponent when you won. Like, yeah, that sucks for the loser, but it really gives some high stakes, especially for everyday
Such a tournament
battles.
would never
not too
be
long ago, the
able
series
to
celebrated
be
its
real.
25th anniversary. It's true. This series has actually released a lot of games from 1997 to 2020. There have been a number of games released, mostly for Nintendo consoles. But it leads to an interesting question, especially for my younger viewers. If this series has been around for so long, why haven't they heard of it? I'm sure most actually haven't, which is another reminder of my expiration date.
Look everybody, it's a fossil!
The series is essentially 27 years old. That's because the West didn't get a lot of the games that released. Yeah,
I think it would be popular here if they
90s
just
and early
did it.
2000s, but the 3 seasons of the Medabot anime, as well as the only 3 games that were actually brought over, they were just it. We did have merch like small figurines that could have been used in a game, I believe, but after the initial buzz, Medabots just kinda died off in the West. If I can remember correctly, during that time frame, there were a lot of shows and marketings going on. One of the biggest selling points for kids programming was trying to sell merchandise to kids. Stuff like Power Rangers, Transformers, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and of course, Pokemon. Good luck facing that.
Selling merchandise? Nah. To me, that could never work. No, I'm not a victim of commercial stuff. Absolutely not. No, that's just a green screen.
That giant rat back in the day. This is my speculation, of course. But for today's video, I figured we'd go back to the past and I'd give my own account of what I remember about Medabots, share my memories, and talk about some of the interesting things I've learned about the series in the last few years. Again, I'm Manga Common, and welcome. It's time to
Medabots! Roll battle!
Like most people
Roll battle!
with the series, the whole thing started with a show
That rock looks like a penis.
about a young kid living in the 22nd century, a slightly futuristic version of our own world. Only with this world they've managed to perfect teleportation, robots, and social media doesn't seem to be a thing. I mean, given my own personal robot...
I gotta say, I do like futuristic stuff and everything, but I honestly am a sucker for this near-futurism, like the next 200 years or so, like stuff still looking like we know it today, but just a bit more advanced, you know? Like that. That's kind of cool always.
But to fight against other robots, and I'll gladly delete my Twitter.
What is
I
that?
see nothing, I hear nothing, therefore, there is nothing.
The show follows the adventures of Ikki Tenryo, a boy who's had a
Solid
fascination
logic.
with Medabots for who knows how long, and eventually gets his own Medabot, Medabee, and they're just the best of friends.
Correction! You call me a piece of junk!
Huh?
Who's the piece of junk now, mister?
How does Metabee even look like a bee, actually?
Name's Metabee, baby! Metabee!
I mean, the
Well,
coloring,
friendship
okay.
doesn't have its ups and downs. Funnily enough, the anime is actually an adaptation of one of the games, the second game
Kuwagata's
to be
much
precise, and it does have connections to the first game as well. Not that any kid in the 90s would know that. Look, when you see Metabee struggling to get up, take out one of the evil bots in his first shot, then dodging the flames and lay a smackdown on the antagonist, God, there's a
Honestly, fire used on a robot is probably one of the most ineffective things you could do. Robots like these are probably, like, tightly outfitted to not let the fire through. Sure, it could make them easier to overheat, but they also don't overheat that quickly from just a flame. Those aren't all that hot in comparison to, like, lightning or anything. And they can just walk through and take out the enemy before it overheats, actually, you know?
reason why I love robots. It just really leaves an impression on you. And almost all the Medabots have their own unique designs to them. Metabee, Peppercat, Brass, Milodon. Heck, we even got Medabots that are based off the Monkey King and Ben K. That Gokudo one really tickles my ivory, especially when he goes...
The designs are really cool.
Don't get me wrong, looking back on the anime's animation style, it had its ups and it had its downs. Like, the action scenes could be really good. And I mean good, I mean exceptionally
Of course there has to be a
especially
ninja.
by the time.
Right! Laser cannon!
Pew pew pew! But answer me one thing. Why is it that in most of franchises like this, the main character's main partner always is the most basic and absolutely non-special looking thing? Like, nothing against Metabee, I still like the design, but you have seen what cool designs we have besides Metabee. Even Kuwagata, which, if you don't know, in the games, usually there's a Metabee and a Kuwagata version and you get one or the other, is much cooler than Metabee. Like, I don't want to bash on Metabee, it's... yeah, but you know what I mean, right?
Fancy.
And at other times...
Yeah, look at this, for
Like,
What
am I even allowed allowed to make fun of this kid?
What in the Sam hell is this?
Grant, I don't think this is necessarily a negative. You save the best animation for the fights and have the cheaper animation for things like gags and such and background characters.
Yeah,
and one of the better
makes
parts
sense.
of the anime would have to be the dub. Medabots...
You have to see it like this. In Japan, making an anime is an awful practice. Like, in the West, we usually make series that we have a season, we film that season, and then the editing takes place, and then it's released. In Japan, well, there's an episode next week, which we prepare this week. So they basically have 7 days per episode to make it. Not even really 7 days, because you have to have some days off, of course, usually 2, depending on the country, and I think in Japan it's also that way. And also, of course, they can't work 24/7. Obviously, though, in Japan, that's a whole other story. It's, yeah, they are so limited in that time frame that they have to cut corners here and there. It's understandable, even though it's kind of sad, but what are you gonna do? That's how it works over there. And honestly, I think it should change, but, well, moving on.
Is a silly series, even in the original Japanese.
is silly.
But I do have a preference for the English dub, mainly because it doesn't take itself too seriously.
Around. Besides, if the rubber robos catch up with us, they'll tear you to pieces.
You're a friend of Dr. Aki's. I can't accept help from you.
Just trying to give you a hand.
I can see that. Would you mind giving me a hand somewhere else? Maybe above my waist?
The thing is, the goofiness of the
That was
dub
good.
really lends to the already wacky nature of the anime. Like, take for example, the major antagonist of the series, the Rubber Robo.
Yeah, how can I take those serious?
Last week, when we were out marketing ourselves, that I devised our current scheme.
Especially the baby.
Everybody, drop your spray cans. I hate to tell you all this, but we're spray painting the side of the police station.
I knew
Yeah, exactly.
I'd been here before.
Obviously, there's going to be some allusions to a certain goofy trio from another
Like I said!
who are antagonists, but are more akin to goofballs who, when serious,
But-
can be a threat.
If you look at that, yeah, you could say, well, it's Pokemon's thing with Jesse and James, Team Rocket stuff. But Pokemon didn't really invent this trio. Like, look for example at Nadia and the Secret of Blue Water, which I think predates Pokemon. They also had that evil trio. That's a trope that was a thing in anime back then. Just, yeah, the goofy evil trio wasn't invented by Pokemon.
Threat, but most of the time they're just comic relief, including the mooks.
Nowhere to run now.
They look like
Hand it over,
ants.
kid.
Are either of you a doctor?
Huh?
This poor thing was injured. I have to take him to a doctor right away.
What? Know any doctors?
One time I dressed up as a doctor for Halloween.
Well, you'll have to do. Take a look.
Uh-huh. Wait a minute, we're supposed to be chasing her, not helping her.
Hell, just looking at the animation alone shows that there's a more goofy nature to it other than just the dub.
For once, I was right.
Oh,
Baton, no.
Oh no. Did the parrot just die?
oh dear. Mrs. Tenreal? What are you doing?
Come on! Have some respect for the dead!
He's not dead, but his
But the-
batteries are.
Okay.
So, robots?
Did I forget to mention that?
Oh,
So I watched this series way back, like probably 20 years ago. I don't remember much from it. And this scene I don't remember. This was genius. The build-up and the joke, it just worked so great.
now I'm really angry!
If that's not enough, the Rubber Robo Gang's leader has the ability to turn people into teddy bears. No, I am
What?
not kidding.
At one point, I had him totally
What?
beat, but I had to let him go. He cried, Uncle.
I warned you, now out with it.
And that's not a one-off, he does this a few times in the series. There's just this perfect blend
That's
of
crazy.
comedy, action, and a little bit of drama here and there. It just managed to hit that sweet spot in my immature brain all those years ago. And coming back to the anime series in the modern day, I honestly found myself more entertained and laughing and enjoying the fights more. Of course, it'd be a sin if I didn't bring up the best part of the show, Mr. Referee!
Yeah.
I officially declare this match a submission raw battle.
I love characters like these that just can appear out of nowhere from everywhere.
Ready? Yeah. Medabots, roll back.
Now the question was that a disguise or just him being in his private life?
Well, what are you waiting for?
Then it's agreed! I officially declare this.
You could make a whole theory about this being a corporate state that has ice everywhere.
But he's always
But
there
just take
to
it
be the
as
official
fun.
referee for Robows, especially for Icky. The man is determined, and a lot of the times his entrances can be just as entertaining as the fights themselves.
Okay,
He's
let's not
there
go
for
there.
Almost every battle.
No.
Let's go, guys!
Hey, where's Mr. Referee?
It's a coincidence that it's
How does this
Icky
man
and
know?
Yono.
Well, I would say that the show
Just a
is
coincidence.
perfect. That wouldn't be truthful. Like I said, there are times when the animation can be downgraded a bit, and it does suffer from the English dub at some points. Off the top of my head, for an example, is the inclusion of lines just to fill up some moments that should be silent. You know what I'm talking about, those moments where there's supposed to be a shocking revelation or serious moments. They do have to put something there, apparently, to add audio, and while it wasn't a big deal, I did notice it a few times. There was also the Medabot introduction. They're cutaways that give small introductions to the Medabots and their special attacks, but they're just there to eat up time since there was some parts that were cut from the episodes. It's filler, and the only other time I've seen that was... Man, I just can't get away from that series now, can I? And I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the series' own master thief, the Phantom Renegade. He's amazing as a mystery card character and has great range too. At one moment, he is a serious threat that can do amazing feats.
They call me the Phantom Renegade. World-renowned thief.
I remember it being so obvious who that was just because there's only one character with that haircut.
Thanks for the rare medal, suckers.
The next, he's a klutz.
And those fools just let it slip through their fingers. Hey, no! No! Oh!
It was unfortunate. Guess it's a water type now.
Why me? Why?
Pokemon actually should do crossover with stuff like this, for example. Just
The show
have
is
some
not
robots
afraid to
based
laugh
on
at itself, which is something that I can
That would be
appreciate.
cool.
Although some of the voices can be, well...
Over this bridge. If a row battle is the only way to solve this, then Coach Mel
Okay, English voices, like, I'm from Germany, I grew up with this stuff in German. Yeah, I cannot really talk about this.
is going in!
Wow, you should coach the debating team.
Sometimes old shows and anime would just have the weirdest voices for characters. There's also the issue with the seasons. You see, the first series had 2 seasons to it, with the total number being 52. So, naturally, people would want to separate the seasons evenly, right? Well, when we get past episode 5, that's when the episodes begin to get messed up. You'll notice that after the 26th episode, there would be episodes that would be more natural at this early part of the season. The biggest example would be the Medabots Cyan Dog and his Metafighter Spike, both of whom had a few focused episodes, with one of them leading up to Cyan Dog getting an upgrade. Of course, that episode was pushed to the latter half of the English dub, and then there were other examples I can go into, like how the Rubber Robo Gang, after supposedly being defeated, just kind of shows back up,
That's a
and they're
mess.
doing their goofy gags again. It should be noted that access to the episode is pretty easy to get nowadays. There are DVDs and Blu-rays of the series.
Like, I get censorship in a way, if you have to censor too much, like what they did with Naruto, then just don't put it at the age range that Japan thinks it's fine, but put it at a higher age range. Small things, okay, I understand, because cultures are different. But why relocate episodes to... That's... like, Western cartoons, classical Western cartoons, might work as that, as there is no coherent story. But you cannot, like, put that on a show like this that has a red thread going through it, a storyline to adhere to, you know? Just don't.
Available, and there are a couple of streaming services that do offer you a chance to watch it. What about the 3rd season? Yeah, I should talk about that. There is a 3rd season of the show, but it's one that's heavily criticized, and for a good reason. A lot of the characters from the original series just kind of disappear. And not one-off characters or side characters, but characters that were kind of important to the plot. One of the biggest examples would be Karen. She's Icky's crush, and she also is the niece of one of the creators of the Medabots, Dr. Aki. But in spirits, she's gone and replaced with Nai. Not that Nai's a bad character per se, but she's also the granddaughter of Dr. Aki. So we just traded one family.
Yeah, characters like her have it hard because you remove a likable character that people enjoy and exchange it with a new one. The new one doesn't necessarily have to be bad, but people tend to hate on a character that's actually fine just because it took away the place of the other one. Which is true in a sense, and it sucks. Like, don't do that.
Member for another, for some reason. And there are other characters missing, like Ikki's rival Koji, a number of Medabots that basically get replaced with different models, have no relation to the OGs, yet looking very similar. Oh, and no Mr. Referee.
I hereby declare that this match is cancelled and that I need a doctor.
I'm not saying the show
How
was
is-
abysmal in Season 3, but I think the reason why it didn't pan
Why
out
did
or
he
isn't as loved as the
disappear?
previous seasons is because of the drastic change. It's got a different vibe to it, and while it acts as a continuation of the previous seasons, it left
I
behind
think
a
they
lot
never
of elements
aired
that
the
people
third one
enjoyed from
over here.
before. At least that's my thought with it.
Hey, Gordy, what you got there?
Latest version of Ducks on a Pond? It's a total quack-up. Yes, I'm unflappable.
What the hell did you just say?
The Medabots franchise has a number of games to it. However, those in the West only got about 3 of them.
Honestly,
I remember
bring
playing
over
at least 2
those
of them
games.
back in the day. Unfortunately, the games we got weren't the greatest, but they weren't terrible. Let's start with the GameCube game, Medabots Infinity. This was the one I really didn't get to play, but reactions to the game were mixed at best when looking online. It's also the only Medabot game.
Okay, first thing I see about this game is that the camera in that, I assume that was a battle scenario, was way too close to the character. Like, you barely can see if an enemy walks in.
In the West that's 3D. Some of the reasons that held this game back were the camera of the game would be an issue, especially when you consider the gameplay that it can shift from its usual wide perspective to close-ups at ground level. Again, I need to stress I haven't actually played this game, I'm going off what other people have said online, but there were
Fair.
other issues highlighted, such as the slow-paced cutscenes that were unskippable,
Oh,
and
boy.
even bugs in the game, particularly one that can lock the players out of actual content. That kinda sounds like a real bad deal.
Quite honestly, I don't mind cutscenes being unskippable all that much. Pokemon Sun and Moon gets bashed for that a lot, but I don't mind it. It's fine. What I do not like is slow text. That is annoying.
Deal?
Now, I'm really mad.
One of the games I actually did play in the Medabot lineup was Medabots AX, Metabee version for the Game Boy Advance, and it's a fighting game. The game came
I
out
played
in 2
that.
versions, Metabee and Rokusho, and you basically had a Pokemon situation where there were
Rokusho.
differences like the small
Was it
amount of parts that you
Kuwagata?
could get, and your starting Medabots. A fighting game with Medabots isn't the worst idea in the world,
was
especially
fun.
when you can customize your Medabots parts in the game. That actually sounds pretty neat. I do recall having a lot of fun with this title too, especially when the levels had platforming and had a secondary fire with you. That was actually pretty fun. The problem
Yeah,
started
that
to
was
lay
cool.
in the execution of the gameplay, since there really isn't any actual strategy to be had other than getting up in your opponent's grill and mashing attacks until you get enough energy to unleash your Metaforce. As such, it's not that hard to really have every match bleed into each other, and considering that there's a bit of a grinding in the game, since there's a level system, even your partner Medabot is practically incomplete at the start, it can lead to a bit of a boring grind fest. Which is a shame, because there's a lot of detail put into the pixel art for the game, and I certainly would love to play a
The
custom
pixel art
fighter
is
where you can mix
awesome.
and match parts for your robot to have different attacks. That's what Medabots should be, at least in theory. The game's repetitive was the big issue, even though I found the game to be fun. And finally, technically the first game released to the West, Medabots, Metabee and Rokusho, it's an RPG that takes a lot of influence from the
I played
anime.
that as
And
well.
that's by
That
design
was
because
cool.
this game's technically a remake of the second game that Japan got. In this game, you basically can control up to 3 Medabots and fight against
Ah, yeah. The Medabot was called Rokusho, but the medal was Kuwagata. That's where I mixed that up. I
others.
see.
Each turn, you and your opponents will assign actions, which are then carried out at the same
This
time,
was
with the Medabots
an
stats
interesting
determining how
system.
effective and fast their attacks are and how much damage they can dish out. And here's the thing, much like in the show, each part, the head, the legs, and each arm, has
That's
its
so
own
cool.
health pool. So this means that parts might get destroyed first and disable a Medabot's actions. That sounds pretty...
What he didn't mention, maybe he does in a minute, but the way the ATB, I call it ATB because it's very much like Final Fantasy, works is like the Medabot walks over to that line in the middle and then attacks. And then he walks back and then you can get another command in. I thought that was pretty unique because it's not only an ATB gauge you see on screen, but it's actual movement of the characters. That's very interesting.
Pretty sweet, right? Well, there's a major problem with it. You can't choose what the Medabot is going to hit. In the game, if you manage to destroy a Medabot's head, you can instantly defeat it, and if that Medabot is the leader of the opposing trio, you can end the match right then and there, which is all well and good, but since you can't choose what your Medabot can hit, it relies on luck and randomness, and that can waste your time in that regard. Oh, and I don't want to forget, this sort of thing can happen to you too. If an opposing Medabot gets a lucky headshot on you, you can get defeated right then and there. Even more so when you consider that random encounters can happen anywhere. Yeah, not just...
I'm not really sure if I dislike that. If it's more unlikely that you hit the head, it's more like a critical hit then. I think that can be cool if it's balanced properly. But, well, I mean, balance is the most key aspect in every game, I would say. If it's balanced properly, everything can become good. Even if it seems bad on the surface, I think.
Just outside of towns, but in towns too, it can make it for a bit of a slog. I do want to point out that the game is flawed, but...
The masked guy, by the way.
It's not terrible. I can see, though, how in the early 2000s when these games were released, they weren't exactly flying off the shelves, and how
Maybe
they
I
were
should
made
stream
certainly
that
didn't
one
help
day.
either. But I'm
Check
just
out
saying
my
that I can
Twitch,
see
by
why
the way.
people would pass up on these games back in the day, and how Medabots slowly began to fade away in the West.
We'll reinvest the earnings into foreign currency accounts with compounding interest, and it's gone.
What?
It's gone. It's all gone.
So near the beginning of the video, I brought up that Medabots have been around in Japan for quite a few years,
That
over 2
graphic style is
decades,
cool.
and it's fun. They've consistently released games for quite a few years, even getting games on the 3DS, and I ain't gonna lie, I feel like we've gotten gypped in some aspects. It looks like you can actually target parts from the opposing Medabots, and the Medabots actually look really impressive with a lot more to have to mix and match, and hello there! Well, sign me up for the Robo Gang, and hot damn, that thief character looks awesome. Seriously, one of the reasons why I want to play these games is just for the Medabots and the character designs. Heck,
Yeah.
a few times for cross-promotion of
get
the
him.
series too. I'm sure a lot of people will know this, but just for the sake of it, I have to talk about the crossovers that Medabot has had, like with Mega Man and Digimon.
Yes!
I'm not kidding, these series had a crossover with Medabots, with a couple of Medabots actually being designed after War Greymon and Metal Garurumon,
Yes,
but there
yes.
being a variant of Omnimon that had Medabi and Rokusho as the arms. That's so awesome.
I do have the dim cards
and
for
then there
that.
was the Mega Man Battle Network crossover, where there
Those
were
look-
a couple
those are
designs
so
that are
cool.
actually used for the mobile Medabot game. I love the adaptations for this sort of thing, and I honestly hope that
I think the problem in the West is that... how to put that? Mecha stuff isn't as popular here. Yeah, Gundam is very popular. Big mecha fighting stuff is popular. But the more... let's call it Pokemon-y mecha stuff just doesn't catch on here that well. It happened with the aforementioned LBX as well, and it's too bad because I really am a fan of this.
there would be something like Kamen Rider being used for this. Come on, it'd be so awesome. We even had a video game-based Kamen Rider in the form of X-Aid. This would have been so perfect. But then again,
yes!
What was stopping Medabots from coming over to
it
the
would.
West? What was stopping Imagineer, the current owners of the IP, from bringing it over? Especially in 2020, they released digital versions of the first games on the Switch and only gave it to Japan?
I mean, sure. Translation does cost something, but you could do an English translation for worldwide release at least, you know? Kamen Rider does that as well. They don't even release them over here, but they have English text, the Kamen Rider games, which is weird, but, well, it gives us a chance to play it here in the West, you know? Sure, not everyone from Germany or France or stuff speaks English, but we have 2024, that's your fault.
Well, aside from there being no interest in the West after the early 2000s and it dying out in the market outside Japan, Medabots lost its trademark.
What?
Yeah, no.
I don't care about the money, the game, it will be on Steam. This is so huge. This is unbelievably huge, making Medabots great again. What?
Not kidding. In the late 2010s, Imagineer had let the European trademark to Medabots lapse. This allowed a crypto bro to snatch up the trademark and try to create their own Medabots game that you can still find the trailers on YouTube on the official Medabots YouTube channel. I'm not going to show you the footage because knowing crypto bros, they would probably do whatever they can to get money and would probably try to claim this video.
Yeah,
taking
crypto.
assets, trying to scam people, even trying to get the game on Steam. The creators even tried to say they bought the IP of Medabots, which No, you didn't. You see, trademarks and IPs...
Let's jump back a second. According to this link, he did apply for and successfully register for the Medabots TM. But as I showed, TM is not IP. Yeah, that's different. That's like owning the sign to a factory and claiming to own the factory and everything it produces. Exactly true. It's basically like when you own a game, you don't own the game. You own a copy of the game that you are allowed to play. And no, that's not only digital. People always like, we don't own games anymore. You never did, even with physical games. You always ever only owned the copy you have in your hands. You're not allowed to do anything with it except playing it technically. Yeah, that's a hot topic, I know, but you know.
These are similar, but they're not the same thing. As a Twitter user, Crate, who has actually documented
they can use the name,
that's like owning a sign to a factory and claiming to
property.
own the factory and everything it produces. What's even more wild is that this crypto bro tried to force Imagineer to change the name of Medabots because he owned the trademark. When Imagineer rightfully told the guy to go screw off, the crypto bro thought it'd be the best idea to sue Imagineer from selling their game in Europe. This all took place in 2020. Obviously, Imagineer decided to countersue the crypto bro, and in 2023, it was announced that Imagineer had actually managed to win the lawsuit. Now, there's a lot more going on here, and if you're interested in the nitty-gritty details, I'll link a Twitter thread that goes into a lot of detail about the debacle. But I can see how this could be an issue for localizing some Medabot games to the West, especially since Europe these lawsuits were focused on had a ton of countries probably would have been a mess to bring Medabots to the West and not get a similar treatment from the crypto bros. Then again, I'm not privy to the lawsuits and stuff like that, but hey, maybe this is a sign that Medabot materials could potentially come back to the West. Maybe. I don't know.
Oh, if we're lucky, I would love it. You could rename it for the West, you know, like Metal Battlers or something. Metal Battlers has a nice ring to it, actually.
I'll admit that Medabots had an impact on my life as a kid. Like, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have loved things like robots as much as I did if it wasn't for the anime. And cards on the table, while I would love to see Medabots being brought to the West, in our current climate, I'm not sure if I could enjoy it. Not because I think the games would be bad or anything, but a good chunk of the games that I wanted to play were on the DS and 3DS. Consoles have been largely left behind, and if you know anything about the games in this period from Nintendo, a lot of them actually do.
They did release something on Switch. I think it was the old Game Boy games or GBA games. Not like on Switch Online, but yeah, in Japan, of course. So there's a way you can get them. Of course, you cannot read them, though, if you don't know Japanese.
Do utilize the dual touchscreen. And while it's not impossible to adapt them to modern hardware, I don't see why people would do that. That and the fact there might be people out there who get their grubby little hands on the series and make changes that will quote-unquote ruin it. Still, for a few years back in the day, I was happy to watch the adventures of Icky and Medaby. I'd get excited seeing the robots fight with lasers, guns, swords, and flamethrowers.
Yes! The Phoenix and his flames of fury!
You know, for kids! So when I managed to get double the likes on the community post asking if anyone would want a small video about Medabots, well, I certainly wasn't expecting to get double the likes. Even if this video doesn't get a lot of views, I'm glad I could talk about something from my younger days in a weird state it's in. So if you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like, make sure you're subscribed, and if you're so kind, please leave a comment. Like, say, Medabots Roll Battle! I'm Manga Common, and I hope you're ready for a Medaby bopping. Later!
Oh, wait.
Out for now.
Hey, I thought garbage day wasn't until Tuesday!
Yeah, okay. Like I said, go over to his video. Link is in the description below, and leave him a like, and also subscribe if you like his content. And like and subscribe this reaction too, because, hey, it helps us all out, right? If I grow bigger, he can grow bigger because more people watch me and discover him through me. It's a nice give and take situation. And yeah, for the algorithm commentary, I think he had a right thing to go on. Put Row Battle down in the comments below as well. This is Rief the Leaf reacting to Medabots, the series Lost to the West by Carmen Manga Carmen, that way around. And I hope to see you next time as well. Until then, bye-bye! Also, check out the videos on screen somewhere. They are here. Check those out.